Hey, what is going on, everybody? I am your host, Justin Perry. Today is January 3rd, 2023. Happy New Year and welcome to another episode of the ShotQuality Bets Podcast, now in video. If you're listening at home, definitely make sure to check us out on YouTube. We are now putting these shows live with my beautiful face and, of course, some great commentary from our friend Big 3 for 3, who is always with me on this show. We'll be having guests. We'll be doing a little bit more, able to share videos and, of course, live interactions with the ShotQuality Bets website to help you use the site better, make better picks. That's what we're here to do. Big 3, Happy New Year, man. Excited to start 2023 with a bang. How have you been?
Yeah, not too bad. Pretty exciting time, obviously, getting into some of these conference games. And I think you start to get a better idea of, how these teams are going to play against each other. You start to see teams playing the same team a couple times, and making adjustments, stuff like that. It's fun. And we've talked about this a little before, like the games become a little more serious. For a lot of teams, their route to making the tournament is by winning the conference tournament. In order to do that, you have to have a good seed and play well in these conference games. So it's kind of, for a lot of these, especially small conference teams, like these games are super, super important from here on out. So
yeah, and it's definitely a really interesting process, especially as in the Power Sixes, it feels like, you can't take more than 2 losses now if you want an at-large. So it's become very competitive. The regular season has so much just like edge to it. It's so ultimate, especially at the top. And then, like you said, everybody else is really battling for seeding to try to make that run, to try to get the tournament championship and get the promised bid to the big dance. We are only 3.5 months away from Selection Sunday. I think it's like 14, 15 weeks. It's pretty crazy how quickly we have already arrived on conference season. And look, we're going to be taking a dive into some of the biggest games for Wednesday's action. So if you're listening to this Tuesday night, Wednesday, this is the right one for you. We're going to talk a lot about how we use the tools. Like our most recent episode, we'll be handicapping a little bit off the cuff, using the tools, bringing you through our live analysis, how we use shot quality data to come up with our takes, with our opinions, and most importantly, the bets we're going to make. So let's start getting into it a little bit. As you can see, if you're here with us on YouTube, we do have the Value Finder coming up. We do have a couple games already on the slate for the 4th. You can usually see the next day's games in advance. Some lines are already coming up. And there are some really big games. So Big 3, is there anything that's maybe stood out to you? Do you want to talk maybe some Big 12 action? We have Baylor and TCU, or Big 10. It's late. But anyway, we have Big East action playing with Butler and DePaul. Where would you like to start today, man?
I was thinking maybe we start in the ACC with Wake Forest and North Carolina. Where is that at? It's got to be on here.
Probably somewhere here at the bottom. We can always worth searching the document rather than scrolling through and driving yourself crazy. Wake Forest, of course, is going to be the underdog. We have a nice projection here of 82.3 to 73.3. What's your feeling here? A lot of controversial takes on North Carolina this year. Were they maybe the worst AP number 1 to open the season ever? Probably. But what are you thinking? Are you looking at the dog? Are you fading North Carolina? Do you like the total? What should we talk about with these teams today?
Yeah, so we obviously shot quality. We're showing a little bit of an edge on Wake Forest here at plus 11. We have it plus 9.3 for those of you not watching. But yeah, I really like Wake Forest here, actually. I just think you look at this Wake Forest team that is honestly, I mean, they just beat Duke at home in a pretty convincing fashion. I understand Duke was missing Lively and Whitehead for that game, but this is, I mean, Wake Forest is pretty legit. And I think like coming into the year, it was one of the ACC teams that was a little bit forgotten about. But you look at, I mean, obviously beating Virginia Tech and Duke in their last 2 games after getting stomped at Rutgers. And I think like this is, you even had like a little bit of injury concerns, stuff like that early on. But North Carolina is not good enough to be double-digit favorites against any potential tournament team, I don't think. And I think like, and the real reason why is North Carolina's defense is just not good enough to pull away from any of these teams. And I think you look at some of their, I mean, what are they? 42nd in adjusted defensive shot quality. Other analytics sites have them even lower than that, but clearly not a team that's going to really shut you out defensively.
You take a look at those scores. Look, they're letting up a lot of points. It's not like, Ohio State putting up 84, look at that shot quality score, 88 expected shot quality points, 76 expected shot quality points. Pitt expected 78. Like
agreed. And like they're winning. If you look at the way that they're winning some of these games, right? Like obviously Michigan kind of backdoored them, but like the Ohio State game, really, really big offensive surge, some big shots down the stretch to even pull away from that game. Like I understand, and I don't think that North Carolina is an awful team either. I think at the end of the day, they will be a tournament team, maybe making it to the Sweet 16 even, but they're not good enough defensively at this point in the season to pull away from teams. Like, that's just the truth. Yeah. And you look at those scores, and it's like the only teams they're really pulling away from are like Citadel and Georgia Tech, and like even some of their games against much poorer teams, right? Like they lost 4 in a row, obviously, but then they only beat Portland by 8. Like they only beat Gardner-Webb by a half a dozen.
Quality loss, man.
Exactly, right? Exactly. So they're really not pulling away from anyone, and it's because, as you mentioned, they don't play defense. And so I think catching 11 on a team like Wake Forest is a spot I'm pretty excited about here for sure.
I like it. And look, any team that's going to come in here and rank in the bottom third almost against a team like Gardner-Webb, again, we can bop right into what Shot Quality thinks of Gardner-Webb to get an evaluation here. Not exactly great. And look, I will admit we do need to fix all of these being green. I'm sorry. But again, the adjusted offense for Gardner-Webb being 216th and being able to put up a shot quality win on a team like this should raise some eyebrows. It should give you the idea that, all right, look, now, could North Carolina come out and hit every shot that they take? Sure. But if a team's going to shoot 70% against you and you're going to complain about losing your bet, I don't think you should be betting on basketball. You have to live and die with like incredible or incredibly poor shooting performances. What I think we're looking at here is the fact that this Wake Forest team coming in 64th, having some really solid wins, getting a big shot quality win against Clemson, which is probably, that 20-point loss could be hurting some of like the evaluations some of these line determining models might have based on what actually happened on the floor. Not necessarily the way they took the shots, but just if the ball went in the hoop. Happens a lot. And that's what we're here to kind of dispel, right? We have this as a 64th team in the country, facing someone like 40th. When you look at like how stereotypical models like a Ken Palmer Torvik would grade mid 60s visiting low 40s, you're not getting 11 points. That's a good way to find value. And so I'm with you. I like the plus 11. This will likely be on my sheet tomorrow. We can also maybe go take a peek at the trend finder. This is why I'm so excited to get us on to some video content, because we can show off some of the stuff that we've been doing. North Carolina coming in 4-10 ATS and shot quality still, expecting them to be worse. So we only have 2 games out of the 14 that North Carolina has played that the expected ATS grade was a win. That's not great. That's really not good. And one of them was the Ohio State game, which was a great game. And another one, and look, lost to Citadel on the shot quality score, 20-point difference in expected score. So it's tough with a team like Citadel because they don't have the shot makers to sort of achieve what shot quality expects against just probably bigger players. But nonetheless, still pretty concerning for North Carolina. The plus 11 looks pretty nice. I don't know if we really, let's see, home games, they've definitely been a little slower. Shot quality still doesn't like them at home. I'm with you. I think this might be our first video podcast play. Let's lock it in. Plus 11 right now. Hopefully it stays there by time this podcast gets out. We'll post the audio earlier and make sure that the plays are well documented. So hopefully you guys can hear this and get a good jump on this overnight line. Anything else on the board for you, Big Three? Anything in the ACC? I know we're kind of getting into this power conference play. Maybe anything a little smaller. Let's go check out the Value Finder. Let's look at the bottom here where the games on the 4th are coming. There's a lot of games.
Big game that pops out right towards the top of these January 4th games that I would say probably worth the talk. And that is the Baylor TCU game. Value Finder shows a lot of value on Baylor here, which after I don't know when that was, maybe Saturday, the Baylor Iowa State game, you may be a little hesitant here, but this is actually a spot that I do agree with the Value Finder on. I think that, I don't know, like I said, sometimes you do have to trust the numbers on these. And for Baylor, you look at like some of their like really, really bad games that stand out here, right? And like this is a great view of this right here. Like the Marquette game was awful. Well, they played away at Marquette, right? The rest of them home neutral. They're beating Gonzaga. Not a ton of great teams here. Obviously, they also have a neutral court win over UCLA, but then away at Iowa State. That game, they were up like almost 10 towards the end of the first half. Iowa State went on a run and then just pulled away in the second half. And I think like a big thing to note there, it's just, to me, those away games, especially like the first conference away game, right? It's just like it is kind of an outlier. And you look at it, and Baylor should have won. Like Baylor shot quality score won 68-65, despite losing the game 62-77. And they did not shoot well at all. And I think
Sorry. Hard trying to find a box score. It's difficult.
Yeah, no, but they just did not shoot very well. Obviously,
no, they didn't.
Iowa State scored 12 more points than they were expected to from the shot quality score. And I think like a game like that is really, really deceiving. And people say, oh, Baylor just lost by, 15 to Iowa State. And it's just not really how the game played out, right? And like this is the beauty of shot quality, and this is why we really like this. And I think that this is a great point to say, okay, if Baylor blows out Iowa State at Iowa State, maybe not blows out, beats them by a handful, I don't think that this is -5, right? And TCU,
for sure.
on the flip side, TCU was like on the ropes against Texas Tech. I think they were down at least 10 at halftime. And they're able to crawl back, make a huge comeback at the end, and cover the spread on a last-second dunk, right? And so these are two games where the home teams in these like kind of first conference game of the season made huge second-half runs to kind of, I don't know, like kind of make these results look a little better, or in favor at least of TCU.
I mean,
than
for sure. This game was gross, right? Yeah. I mean, the points per possession rank, both of them being under 25 and under, means this game was just gross, which means there's a lot of opportunity for a team like Baylor to have played better, right? For either team, right? They were both, and actually seeing Iowa State exceed scoring expectations like that much is pretty crazy. On such a bad SQ points per possession rank. So they got pretty dang lucky here, and Baylor couldn't catch a break. They still underperformed. Right. They still underperformed, and they probably should have done a lot better. But, again, there's so much that goes into this. Like, do you look at things situationally? Is this a game where Iowa State was kind of like loading up to play Baylor? Probably. I mean, look, the shot quality win against Western Michigan was a 2-point win. So to me, like, we talk about look ahead spots and conference play starting, like they were definitely looking at this Baylor game with the calendar circled, like knowing that they were going to be going in. They had a million years to prep, man. They played no games for 12 days. They got to just get ready for Baylor. And I'm sure Baylor also had a similar amount of time. Yeah. No, wrong. Look at that. Baylor had been playing. So maybe they just kind of got caught off guard by a team with rested legs and already a pretty dang good defense. That Iowa State defense is no joke. So likely just I would say a temporary dud for Baylor, catching some good value. I have to agree with the model. Like you're just taking a team that looked bad and probably, first of all, should have won the game, right? Yeah. So you're talking 15 points in the market that people aren't really registering. Right. Yeah. That people are looking at getting this recency bias, being like, oh, Baylor, I lost to Iowa State. Like, okay, yeah, they did. But we didn't expect them to based on the quality of the shots taken. So if you just rid that result as like this terrible loss from your mind and look at it as just a competitive game where they didn't get their shots and the other side did, that sort of alleviates a little bit of that worry. You're able to see some value on a 5.5-point line and say, oh, this is still the Baylor team that, charged to a championship not so long ago, coached well, powerful program, good recruits, top talent. I mean, look at what their defense is able to do right now. You're running the 14th best half-court defense in the nation. I mean, that's just incredibly important. They do not let mid-range shots hurt them on shot. They do not allow their opponents to take good mid-range looks. And so what does that mean? That like when you go into the ISO, when you don't like properly execute your offense and you're struggling and you just take a crappy pull-up jumper from 18, like this team is like, or maybe a little closer, 16, whatever. But this team is really making that a hard look. And the same down low in the post. Like, so some of the more like reliable looks, some of the more important looks, this team is just keeping you out of it. And something that's really interesting here for me is seeing that they're like the shot selection stats. And this stuff really tells the tale, like not allowing good shots, but playing teams that are making more shots than expected a little bit. Because you would expect it to be really bad. They're not allowing good shots, blah, blah, blah. We can get into a lot of it. And we will continue to do so. But yeah, what's up?
We'll say one more thing here, like beyond kind of what you can see numbers wise. This is Texas Tech's first road game, like literally their first true road game, and we're into January, which I think, like we just said with Baylor, you look at their like duds, they're road games, right? And so I think like a first road game, especially a conference road game.
TCU, you mean though? Yeah, TCU.
TCU, sorry.
I get them confused. They all played on the same day a couple days ago, and I think I lost my mind.
Okay. TCU, this is TCU's first true road game. Sorry, yeah, that's what I meant. And I think it's really important, especially when you look at like TCU's home court, right? TCU has one of the weirdest, them and like FIU, they have one of the weirdest home courts to play on. And I think it does kind of turn into this like really big home court advantage that they have, right? And they have a couple wins on neutral sites. Utah, I think, is still being overrated just because of some of the shooting discrepancies they've had. They don't really have any like fantastic wins. That Texas Tech win at home there is probably their best one. And I don't know. I'm just not super high on TCU now. I know they're starting to get healthy, starting to get everyone back, but this is a team that was overrated coming into the season. And I think in their first true road game at Baylor, kind of a bounce back spot for Baylor after that one, is pretty significant. The other thing I'll say is LJ Cryer for Baylor's missed the last 2 games, and
he expected to return.
Just saw a tweet this morning that he has cleared concussion protocol, so he'll be back. I mean, this is literally maybe their best player. He's averaged like 15 points a game-ish this season, so that's someone that Baylor has been missing, obviously, a ton the last couple games. To get him back for this one and to still see the line at -5, which would indicate Baylor only by a couple on a neutral,
that doesn't make much sense.
Crazy to me.
Yeah, so. I agree. And the defense should translate for Baylor. We're seeing some of these ranks here. They're one of the best teams in terms of forcing a lot of defensive turnovers. They're good defense against shots attacking the rim. We talked a little bit about that, but these are big factors, right? We talk about the rim and 3 rate. Their defensive rim and 3 rate, I believe, is a little bit low. Rim and 3 rate. Yeah, look at that. So pretty good. So only 74 teams in the nation allow a lower rim and 3 rate. So doing a good job with Baylor, expecting a little bit of maybe offensive regression in the post up, but that might be because they've played kind of nobody and they were probably just getting everything down low. So nothing crazy there, as expected. Really good at the catch and shoot 3, especially if they start getting more talent back, start getting healthier. We kind of there's no such thing as a lock. But we look for like that discount, right? That price that should be a little higher, that place where you can get in with more value than expected. And Baylor is definitely in a position coming off of that loss that should have been a win on ShotQuality to get it done. So let's really quickly maybe look at how they've done, how ShotQuality has them looking. If you like trends, I don't bet strictly based on trends, but I think that over a larger sample size, this starts to get pretty interesting for Baylor. So playing at home here hasn't been pretty, but you know what? Maybe that's what they're due for. Again, I would definitely consider this a good value spot. And I do trust them a little bit more than not. I think this is a different scenario than the games that they've played at home so far. So you definitely need to, take that into consideration. None of these spreads there's one spread below 17 at home.
Yeah.
21, 25.5, 17, 37, 28, 27, 44.5. This
just
is so
different type of game, right? Yeah.
So different. So you can't really take this and say, 1-6 ATS on ShotQuality. Well, yeah, but they still, even though they still covered, 3 more than expected because they were still able to do it. So ShotQuality is going to have a hard time getting people to win by that much just based on sort of how it works. But yeah, take that with a grain of salt. Baylor looks like a good value play. let's keep moving on. We got some great stuff, honestly, coming up. Let's talk a little bit about maybe some totals, because with conference play comes a really good chance to get, in my opinion, into those unders. And if you know about what we've seen with the unders for the model this year, they have been pretty dang successful. So let's get into some of these more interesting unders that we're seeing. I wanted to talk about this game anyway. Connecticut Providence. What do you make of this projection? I mean, you wrote the model. How do you sort of, when you see something like Connecticut, only being favored by 2 and 10 points on the under here, how do you sort of evaluate that game in the Big East? Is Providence going to be able to hold home court? Is Connecticut going to bounce back after taking a loss? I mean, this is definitely one that a lot of eyes are going to be on tomorrow.
Yeah, this is a tough one for sure. I mean, it's going to be hard to imagine Connecticut not being a super popular play here. Like you said, right now the consensus line on the side is only sitting at 5. So ShotQuality is still waiting on a 6 for that to register as a play. But I would be pretty shocked if we don't see a 6 by tomorrow. I just think like what you're starting to see here is early results through 10, 12 games, whatever it is, kind of starting to outweigh like the preseason expectations of the team, and also just like I think they're just being taken into account too heavily, honestly. I really do think that I don't know. I really do think that UConn is good and they are a legit like Final Four threat, but on the road in Big East play, like this was a really, really popular thing a couple years back, and it still is. Like Big Ten, Big East, it's very, very hard to win games on the road, right? And I think like catching 5 points in here, Providence is so notorious for playing these really, really tight games, and I think that I could definitely see it coming down to one of the final possessions, right? And I do kind of like that ShotQuality is showing value on Providence here, because I do think that'll be the sharp side. Just knowing like one of these first, away conference games for Connecticut off a loss, I do think that it's a good spot. The under, man, you look at some of these overs and it's easy to see why the total might be inflated, right? Providence Marquette, which obviously went into overtime.
By 50 points, it was 200.
But like they have been going over by a ton in some of these games, and I think that's where you start to say like, okay, like this is probably a total that people are getting too hot on, right? And I think that, I mean, you think about how you beat this Connecticut team.
It is not letting them run.
Exactly. And so I do think that like Cooley, I would guess that they do try to slow them down a little bit. And I think especially in an environment like this at home, you get a lead early, right? In the game, you're definitely slowing it down, trying to cut down the possessions and hold on there.
I mean, look, that's how Xavier was successful, right? They didn't give Connecticut the shots they needed to beat them. They limited.
And look at what happened in that game too. A lot of those points were in the first half. I want to say it was like 43-43 at halftime, right? And so kind of exactly what we said we think would happen, right? Like it slowed way 42-41. So there you go. So it slowed down in the second half, which is the opposite of what would typically happen, right? But you're at home, you have a lead, or you're even in the game. You want to slow down, cut down the possessions, and like not increase the variance and have the quote unquote better team like get what they're supposed to. So I do see this game, the kind of the game script of Providence tries to slow them down originally or at the start of the game, is in the game, maybe leading, and really tries to pull back in the second half. So I do kind of agree with both of those edges that ShotQuality shows there.
Yep. I think this is going to be a great one. I think we're over here, right? Lord knows my tabs get so messy so fast, man. But yeah, look, I think this is a very interesting spot. Everyone's going to pile back onto UConn. That's my and a Big East team on the road. Look, UConn's probably the only one, maybe Xavier, that I would really consider backing on the road as a favorite. It's just not going to be easy.
I like that you said that, but I'm curious now. So you have another one here, Georgetown, Villanova, right? Does Georgetown win a game in the Big East this year? And I'm curious your take there. Like this is another spot. It's like, okay, is Georgetown?
Yeah. So maybe I should have been clear when they're not playing Georgetown at DePaul.
Yeah.
Right. Look, Georgetown. has been messy, man. I hit on fading them against Butler. And again, look, they are expected to be doing better on almost every game, and it's almost sad to see when you have almost a 30-point loss that should have been 2 in shot quality metrics. So when that continues to happen, shot quality isn't necessarily like the end all be all. No data is, no resources. You need to combine it with an understanding and experience of what you're doing to properly harness it. I mean, you could come to this site and if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to completely misconstrue the data. It isn't like just like anybody can sort of sit down and dive in. I mean, we have the projection model. That's what that's for. If you just want to listen to projections that have consistently won over a long period of time. The model is returning over 5% this season and has been utterly dominant, like over 100 units won. Pretty crazy at the sample size that we're running at. We play a lot of picks. So to return such consistent numbers is awesome. If you're interested in that type of thing, it's $20 a week, $80 a month, or $350 a year on ShotQualityBets.com. But you got to turn it on sometimes, right? But what you got to do with this data is take a look at what Georgetown has actually been able to do. Like, they are taking terrible shots and are getting bailed out by players who can hit them. So the problem then becomes, the minute that they start facing maybe some of these teams that aren't just going to let them get off those shots, they are better than a lot of these teams. They are better than a UMBC. I hesitate, but they're better than Coppin. They're better than Green Bay. They're better than Loyola Marymount. They're probably not better than Northwestern, but they got a lot of these looks off. Now they have limited shot selection, but everybody's making everything over them. So traditional analysis on that would make me think that Georgetown might be due for a pretty good game. And depending on the line, I might lean them at home. They need it. And Nova, they just lost, right, to Marquette. They got a big home loss. Marquette beat them in their own building. I think they're probably looking just to get a win. And this is something that, they're going to go to someone else's building. They want to get a win on the column. They probably won't care if Georgetown brings us back to 5 at the end of the game. They just probably won't.
I think, so, I'm with you.
I struggle to take anyone literally as a home. It's hard.
This is a spot I think is, I mean, I hate to say it, but I really do like Georgetown here. And shot quality model is only showing a little bit of value on them, but I think that this is a really good spot. People are having a tough time dissociating this Villanova team with the Jay Wright Villanova teams, right? And this
the Justin Moore Villanova team.
Exactly. Yeah. This team, and it's not that they're awful, but this is not even a tournament team, right? Like, they should be shot quality score wise. We have them at 0-3 in conference play right now. They did beat St. John's, but we had them losing that game, losing to Connecticut, losing to Marquette. They're not, I mean, they're beating like Boston College by 9 on the shot quality score. They lost to Portland, Iowa State, and Michigan State in that PK 85 game. This team is not very good. And like you said, this sets up great for the dog here, right? Because you have Georgetown, who scores the ball really well. They don't play great defense. You have Villanova, who is going to try to slow you down. They don't play super fast, right? So a high-scoring dog against a low-scoring, like, big favorite like this sets up really great for the dog. You also have Ewing, who, I mean, could be fired any game here, right? They haven't won a conference game in 2 years. Like, I do think that, like you said, for Villanova, there's a lot of pressure to just not blow it, right? Like, win this game, go to 2-2.
This game, get a win in the column, stay competitive. Hope Moore can get back in the next couple of weeks. He's playing 5-on-5s. He's doing contact drills. Yeah, and that's fast for an Achilles, man. Like, that's some KD stuff. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think it just it sets up great for the dog here. Georgetown, if you watch them, like you said, they are, I guess, hitting tough shots, but offensively, you're not thinking this is a team that hasn't won a conference game in 2 years. Like, offensively, they definitely have bursts. And I think when you go against a slow team like Villanova, bad defense just doesn't get exposed as much, right? And so I think this pushing out to 8.59, is just too much. And I would not be shocked, honestly, if Georgetown even wins this game and picks up their first conference win in 2 years. But I do think they at least keep it within 8.5 or 9.
Yeah, I mean, look at some of these defensive miscellaneous stats. All right, the shot selection allowed, they're in the 24th percentile, so they don't let great shots get taken against them. They're forcing, lower quality looks on average. The spacing, I mean, that's not great. They're letting people space out. I'm not really sure what to make of that. But the shot making gets my attention because, they're letting people make these shots. They're allowing shot makers to hit their shots. And that might just kind of fall off. That's probably, I just feel like it's due. I feel like there's regression looming in both directions in favor of Georgetown. Villanova they have some shot makers. They've always had guys on these teams, these Villanova teams. And we're still obviously feeling the Jay Wright recruiting, right? We still have guys who came to play with him, who play that smart brand of basketball, who can make shots. But I think if you're getting a decent amount of points here for Georgetown, which 8.5 is a decent amount.
You can get 9 now, even a low juice 9.
You might want to wait for the morning. You might want to wait for the evening. You might want to wait pre-tip. This gets to 9.5, man. I mean, that is something I probably can't ignore. And it's scary, but sometimes those are the best bets because the book's trying to scare you off, a little bit. And so, I'm into it.
Villanova is definitely the easy side here, right? In terms of you're not going to go to bed thinking, why did I put my money on Villanova, right? It's you're going to go to bed thinking okay, why did I put my money on Ewing and Georgetown?
Right. What am I doing? And
those
again,
are sometimes the ones that work out the best.
Those and more. I feel like more times than not, those are the ones that work out. When you can, when it becomes too easy to justify your bet, Nova's the better team. They're going to go and they're just going to clean up against this Georgetown squad. I don't know. I don't think you can trust Nova to be consistent. I saw them struggle early in the year. Didn't they lose to Temple? Georgetown, it's a rivalry. These teams are not exactly very far away. I mean, none of the Big East teams are, but this one specifically is pretty close. I mean, Philly to DC is like a hop, skip, and a throw. So these guys, and this is the most, you got to understand, this is the most vulnerable a Villanova team has been coming into a Georgetown gym in a decade. And I just don't think they're going to fail to capitalize. I think they want it bad. They're going to try to compete. Every game's a test for this team now to try to get right for a run in the conference tournament because they don't have any other choice. They aren't.
You just look at this Villanova team. They've played 14 games now. They've won. They beat LaSalle by 13, so barely would have covered this number. They only beat Delaware State, who's arguably the worst team in the country, by 10. They beat Penn, who's middle of the pack, by 11.
ShotQuality ATS is 3-11. The expected ATS.
That's what I'm saying. They're not beating anyone by 9, let alone a Georgetown team on the road that is a pretty solid offensive team.
So let's look at what they look like. Look at this. 2-5 against the spread when they're 5 or more favorites. We go to 7, 1-3, expected 0-4. I mean, that's man. I mean, the only one that they eked out, it was close, was the Boston College game, and I honestly like this Boston College team personally. I think that they're playing some really good defense. I'm with you on this, especially on the road. I mean, they shouldn't have been. Look at this. They barely
lost at St. Joe's on the road.
This is what we're looking at. I like this. I like this a lot. All right. What's another game? We'll probably do one more game. And then we'll get out of here. What are you thinking? Anything that, you're really excited to watch tomorrow? Personally, I mean, let's just look at some of this is going to be a little annoying. Apologize. But if we look at the plays, the biggest value on the board tomorrow, for the 4th. The 2 biggest values on the board tomorrow are Duquesne VCU, taking the VCU side, which is, maybe not expecting Duquesne to be able to do what they do against VCU, but then also DePaul Butler. How do you feel about these? Maybe even NC State Duke. Choose one of these big 3, and we'll finish up with that one. Hey, big 3. Look at that.
Yeah, there you go. I'll go with Duke. So also, I just want to say,
Yeah.
I do agree with those top two, honestly.
Mhm.
Especially VCU. I think VCU is one of the better plays. I think people got too hot on Duquesne after their first like 4 or 5 games.
I mean, when that press looked like it could stop anybody for a minute.
Press just dominated Montana. That was a crazy one. I was on Montana in that one. That was a bad one to start. Shot quality loss in that game. I think they won by, I can't read those numbers. I think it was like
91-63.
Yeah. But yeah, so I do agree with those other sides, but I'll go with Duke as the one that we'll read into here.
Sure.
I just want to say, like, and someone said this too. So like Duke, their first true road game was that game at Wake Forest. And I think like with these younger teams, especially, obviously Duke is pretty freshman heavy. But it's a little different Duke team with, Ryan Young, Granderson, like they do have like a handful of transfers. Obviously their point guard, Roach, having a couple years under his belt helps too, but this is not your typical, like really, really young, inexperienced Duke team that's going to get throttled on the road, especially early on. And like I said, the Wake Forest road game, I think people are putting too much weight into without having Lively and Whitehead, obviously.
Yep, that's a big deal.
Filipowski looked terrible in that game, and that's pretty much the only game all year that he's looked terrible in. And so I do think that this team's better. And I will say, like, people, I don't think realize how good the Duke fans travel to, right? So, like, Duke playing at NC State here, which is obviously, I mean, NC State is, I don't know, 15 miles from Duke, right? Like this is maybe the cheapest ticket that a lot of Duke fans are ever going to get to a Duke game, right? And so I promise you this stadium will be at least 50% Duke fans. So the true road game here, the like, yeah, exactly. And it's the same with Wake Forest that was 45 minutes away. But like this is a true road game, or this is going to be a harsh environment, like those types of things, throw those out the window. Like the home court here will mean much less than I think people want to admit that it's going to. And I do think like this Duke team is still looking for a kind of signature win. Not that beating NC State is a signature win, but they don't have a great win on their schedule at all, really. And I think that this is a pretty good opportunity for it. Obviously, you don't want to drop another conference game here, right? You're after already losing to Wake Forest. I'm sure one of the big goals for Shire's first year, right, is a pretty exposable ACC this year, and winning the ACC is probably pretty high on their list. So I will say, I think that this is a game that Duke is going to take pretty seriously too. It is like, I mean, basically the secondary rival, right? Like across town. I think this is a game they're going to want to lose. So
I do like the North Carolina ACC team. They're going to take this very seriously.
Yeah.
Shot quality ranks them at 11.
To see this at 3 too. I don't know. That's pretty shocking to me. So that's.
I think
like.
And look, NC State has definitely held their own this season. And we can take a peek at their record, expected record.
It's like N.C.State.
I know.
It's
confusing. Yeah, that's what they're called. That's how they go by. But they've held their own. Right. And I think there's probably, I'm not going to click the home button because like we said, I don't know if this is really going to be a home game for them. But if you take a look at how they do, let's take a look at how they do as dogs. They haven't exactly had too many, some small spreads here. Kansas, they did win the spread, but like, look at these smaller ones, loss, and then Dayton, which I don't know how they were just 3-point. They were underdogs against Dayton. That's surprising in hindsight. But in terms of these two most recent games against like good schools and all, they were not able to cover the small dog line. And I think again we're going to be looking at something similar. They're probably going to struggle. Interestingly enough, it looks like they're a pretty good over team as a dog. I wouldn't be shocked to see this game kind of move to a little bit of a faster pace. We can check out how Duke has done in terms of expected performance, and of course they really haven't been dogs much. So again, nothing crazy here. Shot quality is a little bit against them, probably because their talent is manufacturing better results than shot quality expects. But look, they're probably going to be in what amounts to seem like a home court scenario. I don't know. This is a really interesting one for me. I probably do lean Duke too, but
The
I just
truth
feel like it's
is,
going to be so popular.
yeah, the truth is, I don't know about popular. I think like this
You
Duke
think? Yeah.
team is not as bet on as previous ones. I do agree it probably will be public, but that doesn't mean that it's not a good bet at 3, because I think by tomorrow, by tomorrow afternoon, it might be 4 or 4.5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe not. But I will say, like, this, we talk a lot about like other analytics sites phasing out priors too quickly, right? North
Mhm.
Carolina State is a team that most sites had, I would say, 80 to 100th to start the season. That is a little off the top of my head, but I think that's pretty close to right. And based on their performance so far this year, a lot of these other sites that I'm not going to necessarily name have them a lot higher than that. And so I will say, like, I think especially, I guess I like Torvik has them 47 right now. And I think that this is just like, what have they done? And if you look at like, what have they done? Who have they beat? Well, they haven't really they beat Dayton and Butler on neutrals, who are both like decent teams. Their next best win after that is Vanderbilt, also on a neutral. And so it's like, okay, they haven't really beat many top 100 teams at all. So what's justifying this bump from 100 to 50? Like, I don't really know. And I think that's part of what ShotQuality is doing here too, is like, we're not really rewarding them as much for like beating bad teams that they should
Yeah.
be beating. Right. And
Yeah.
so like none of that, what I've seen from them, and they lost at home to Pittsburgh, who, I mean, albeit is a better Pittsburgh team than previously, but losing to Miami, losing to Clemson, right? Like losing to Kansas, a lot of these better games that they've played, or the better teams that they've played, they've lost to. And so I think like nothing about beating all of these like 100 and up ranked teams suggests like, oh, they should be moving up the rankings, right? And then you look at a Duke team that has taken care of a lot of teams that they should have, right? Like their only real losses, like Kansas and Purdue, obviously are perfectly fine losses, and then the Wake Forest one without Lively and Whitehead. So I think that Duke kind of fits the mold here of like, okay, this is a team they should beat. They've been beating the teams that they should be beating, right? And North Carolina State hasn't really played anyone they haven't played anyone this good other than Kansas. And so I don't know. I don't really see the justification for North Carolina State moving up this much. And I think this is a good spot to kind of fade that move. You're muted there, Justin.
Love to see that. My favorite thing, when the sirens drive by and then you forget. But hey, look, something that you definitely shouldn't be fading is what Big Three has been talking about, what I've been talking about, what we're able to do here at ShotQuality Bets, kind of see through a little bit of the results that honestly, like, only makes sense in hindsight, right? You see your team loses after they're expected to win, and you're like, wait, but maybe it's because that last game was fraudulent and they got lucky, or maybe I misanalyzed because I couldn't see that, I was fading Louisville and they just haven't been able to hit anything. And now they've, progressed to the mean. There are most like unlucky ATS team, which is crazy. It makes sense, but we do have them due for regression. So I'm not really sure. This is being recorded right now on Tuesday night when I do think they are on the floor. So I'm excited to go check out some scores. But before we go, I just really quickly wanted to give you all, if you've managed to stay this far, we appreciate you. Definitely make sure you're subbed, you like. We're going to have a lot more video content, a lot more audio content if you're hearing this on Spotify or anywhere else podcasts are found. A lot of appreciation for you being here. And we want to tell you a little bit about what is coming up from ShotQuality Bets, the new things. We are always working, trying to sort of push the limits on what analysis, expected data, and all of our algorithms can do. And something that we're very, very proud of, very excited about, is the create your own model tool, the model sandbox, as we are calling it. You're going to have this type of display where you can pick and choose up to 32 different parameters in order to create your own custom model. And we're just, look, I mean, I've been blown away with what this thing can do. It's currently in beta testing. We're creating anything you want. You want to be able to, look at SWAC games because you think, oh, that that conference is dependent on how 3-point shooting goes and maybe interior defense, like you can build something around that to project specific games. Look at your own essentially value finder page, see recommended plays based on various value, and then instantaneously grade that model at that level backwards. It's just not available. No one has built a tool like this, and it should be coming out this January. We'll definitely keep you all posted, but very exciting is that all tier 1 members of ShotQualityBets.com are going to have free access to this in January at some point. So little sneak preview for you there. Big Three had a huge hand in developing what is going to be running this awesome, powerful new tool. And I don't know, Big Three, do you have any words on what people can expect with this thing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess would like to say that it's not your typical like build your own model by like, oh, we're just taking into account like these different variables. Like we are on the back end creating a full regression model that's like taking into account all these variables, testing it against the entire season based on teams' performances at that time. This is a pretty complex thing. And like Justin said, Justin had a huge part in this too, but it was quite the project, and it's going to be super powerful. And part of the reason that we waited this long to launch it was so that we had data on this year that we could give people. So, they weren't creating models off of just a couple game sample size, which Justin, you and I have been preaching all year, right? Like it's too early to weigh the data this much. It's too early. So this is really, we've kind of allowed for some of that data to back itself up. And yeah, we're super excited about launching this. So.
It's going to be really cool. If you have already used the trend finder and you've seen what that can do, this is like, just letting you have that customization that, people ask for. I've been, doing this for a while now. And one of the most asked questions is someone who has built models and shared model results. And I'm sure you get this too, Big Three, is a lot of people want to make their own. It's a very common request. How did you get started? What did you do to like learn to code? Well, we're taking all that out. No coding, no data science required, just a curiosity and a willingness to maybe experiment with this new tool, find the right fits. And you know what? It actually tells you how it's doing. So if you find the holy grail, it's going to tell you this model would have returned 8%, 10%, 12% this season. And if you hit that, you better just comment on the pod and let us know so we can input the same parameters and make some money together. That's what we're all here to do. We had a good show. I'm so excited, as I've said probably like 5 times now on this episode, that we are in video. If you are listening, check out the YouTube. We're going to have our first video up this week on these games, hopefully by tip-off on Wednesday. But check it out. I'm here smiling. We'll have some fun guests. A Big Three's awesome little logo too. Maybe we can coax them out of a shell one day. But for everybody who is home listening, I'd really appreciate you all. We'll be back, of course, at the end of the week, Thursday, with another episode of the Shot Quality Bets podcast. Till then, I'm your host, Justin Perry, my co-host, Big 3 for 3. Follow Shot Quality Bets on Twitter. And, of course, check out that projection model. Better than most. We'll see you next time.